Story time on how I got robbed by the same person twice. So let's take it way back when I was in middle school. I was in sixth grade, and during this time, there were similar catalogs and album, such as the one BTS and Blackpink has, like with photo cards, posters, sticker, and kind of things you collect. Well, I had those for the trending artists at that time, such as Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Spice Girl, Britney Spears. I had a binder dedicated just for all those posters, picture, magazine insert. I had about 10 sheets of the plastic adhesive with all those pictures in there. So about 20 pages, total front and back. And in class one day, I was just looking through it, admiring them, because that's what we did back in the day, or that's what I did. Um, and it was from like a popular magazine, J14, Teen 17, and a bunch of other magazines at that time. And my classmate who was sitting at my table, who was supposedly my friend, wanted to look through them. And I'm like, oh, of course, you can look through them. Didn't really think much of it. And a few minutes later, it was time to go to break. It was during second period, so we had nutrition or break time. And the bell rang, and I was like, oh, let's go. And she said, oh, you go first. Uh, I'm just gonna go do something. And I was like, okay. So I left, and then 15 minutes later go by, and I noticed she never came. So it's time to go back to class. And of course, I went back to my folder and couldn't wait to look through it, just for me to find out that it was completely empty. I was robbed. Literally just 10 empty plastic sheets, all insert remove, nothing left. And I know exactly who did it. A few weeks later, I did end up moving, not because of that, but just because we were already planning to move, and nothing ever really happened, because during that time there's really no way of tracking who steals stuff. There was no phone, there was really nothing, and there was no consequences. So that's just something I always remembered, and her name. I didn't really remember her face, but I remember her name. And years go by, I end up purchasing a condo around that same area where I went to school, and I was renting out my unit, and a potential tenant came by asking if she could rent it out, her and her family. And I was just like, oh my God, your name really sounds familiar. Did you happen to go to this middle school? And she said, oh, yeah, I did. And, she happened to be the same age as me. So I'm like, oh my God, did we have a class together? I remember I had a friend with the same name like you. Is that you? And she just, kind of was all nonchalant, like, oh, really? And I was just like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I don't know. And then I just kind of like left it at that. But I remembered her name for a reason. So she kind of like brushed it off. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. So I ended up renting it out to her and her family. They ended up staying there for approximately 5 years. And I ended up having to sue them for property damage, just for them to rob from me again.